All right, the operator advanced aviation forward refueling system. Given the requirement to provide aviation refueling support on the fixed airstrip or pre-designated field location, personal material requirements to perform the task. 4 military occupational specialists qualified in the N2F soldiers on the MOS 93H Pathfinder personnel to have the required air traffic controller skills and customers, aircraft crew, proper specification products. The Advanced Aviation Forward Refueling System is a fire extinguisher, spill container kits, appropriate communication systems, personnel protective equipment, risk management procedures, applicable material safety data sheets, facility response plans, spill preventive control measures, the unit hazardous material waste management policy, the unit standing operation procedures, oil written operation orders, DA Form 2404, equipment inspection maintenance worksheet, DA Form 598E, equipment inspection maintenance worksheet, EGA, the DA Form 3643, daily issue petroleum products, fully access to all reference materials. Standards: the layout of the equipment of a selected site assembly, performing operated preventive maintenance checks and procedures, perform fuel quality surveillance prior to the service equipment, and maintain fuel equipment record and assembly of the AAA FARs without damage to the equipment and injury personnel. Performance steps. Failure to perform the task correctly may result in the damage to equipment or other injury to the death of the personnel. Danger to the death of personnel. Death or personnel injury may result from explosion of fuel flames exposed to open flames spark static and discharge. Do not permit smoking and open flame spark producing equipment within 50 feet of the aviation advanced fueling area requirement. Forward aviation fuel refueling system. Ensure all equipment is well grounded prior to the commencing of any operation maintenance task. Always ensure the ground operation completion of the aircraft is completely prior to the beginning of any of the fuel operations. And once again, that is the Advanced Aviation Forward Refueling System. Performance steps. All couplings have caps and must be removed before the connection is made. Ensure the cap remains in place until just before the connection to prevent the contamination from the fuel system by foreign materials. Once the cap is removed, couple the adjacent caps to reduce the probability of foreign materials containing the aircraft from the aircraft. Lay out the system so that the helicopter can land and refuel head when avoid laying out of the system so the helicopters land and take off the tailwinds. Choose the highest ground available to prevent vapors accumulation. Make sure the most of the unit use of the natural concealment. Avoid laying out of the system near bodies of water to avoid contamination. Apply risk management procedures. Understand the execute risk management process. Risk controls command guidance directly high headquarters. Access variables and hazards. Continuous report risk and risk reduction measures as appropriate to the chain of command. Read and understand the unit installation standard operation orders requirement for the requisitions, storing, handling, and disposition of hazardous material, where appropriate protective equipment as required, glove, hearing protection goggles needed to be worn when performing any fueling operation. Dispatch the Advanced Aviation Fuel Forward Area Requirement Refueling System using the Department of Defense 1970 Motor Equipment Utilization DA Form 5987 E Motor Equipment Dispatch EGA DA Form 2404 DA Form 59988E. Present your OEF 34 U.S. Government Motor Vehicle Operation Identification Card DA Form 5984 E Operator's Permanent Record to the motor pool dispatcher to dispatch equipment. Obtain equipment record folder to the dispatch once he or she has verified that you are qualified to operate the equipment. Perform before operations preventive maintenance check services equipment and note the DA Form 2404, DA Form 5988E, and as appropriate if the equipment is cleared and dispatched, present the DA Form 2404, DA Form 598E 5988E to the dispatcher. Have the dispatcher sign the DA Department of Defense Form 1970 DA Form 5987E. A note when you will report upon the completion of your mission. You then may sign the Department of Defense 1970 DA Form 5987E to dispatch the equipment. Removement of the Advanced Aviation Forward Area Refueling System components of the vehicle aircraft. Inspect the Advanced Aviation Forward Area Refueling System. The damage that you may have occurred during the transportation, ensuring the system is complete. Performance. An interlocking feature of the valve of unisex couple prevents discoupling of the coupling when the valve is in the open position. When the unisex coupling is not connected, the pressure tight of the dust cap shall be connected throughout the setup procedure. After connecting the unisex coupling position, handle the open position. Unless the procedures state otherwise, do not drag hose over an improved abrasive surface. This could damage the hose. It could damage and decrease the life of the hose. To extend the extended use of the hoses, they shall be unrolled during the setup and evacuation to prevent abrasions. Before and during after operations, preventive maintenance check services and system components of according to TM 104330-23713 and P. And note the DA Form 2404, DA Form 5988E, and any faults found while performing preventive maintenance check services. Assemble the Advanced Aviation Forward Area Refueling System by preparing for use. Do not permit smoking open flame spark production equipment within 50 feet of the AAFR Advanced Aviation Forward Area Refueling System. Ensure all equipment is well ground prior to the commence any operations of the maintenance task. Position contaminated barriers in general shape of a T. Place the fuel drums on containment form top of the T. Insert the chocks and the berms on both sides of the drum to prevent the rolling. Position open transportation bags. Do not open 4 bags containing nozzles. Remove engine module from the pump of the engine module. Unclamp the exhaust hose pipe for the exhaust manifold. Disconnect the pumpage over the temperature cable at the engine module connection panel J3. Install the dust cap on the connectors. Wrap the freeing cable around the fuel transfer pump outlets. Disconnect the fuel supply line. Return the fuel return line to the engine module. Connect the free ends of the lines together. Disconnect the latch to the unlatched engine module from the pump engine frame and slide engine of the module out of the frame. Warning. The Advanced Aviation Forward Area Refueling System suction recirculation hoses are connected to the fuel drum via elbow valves with intergramenal cam lock couplers. When the elbow valve is closed, the valve stem is extended. When the opening is retracted, the stem is opposite of the conventional valves. Requires the operator to double check the valve positions. During the system setup and teardown, since observations can be misleading, failure to heed this warning could result in the death of serious injury. Fuel spillage will occur if an elbow coupling is open before connection to the fuel drum. Ensure the elbow valve coupling is closed before connection to the fuel drum. Failure to heed the warning can result in the death of serious injury. When the performance steps, note. When the connection system components open all the valves as components are connected except the fuel drum outlet, elbow valves, filtration model, inlet, and outlet valves. Open the unisex coupling valves at the time of the connection, which will expedite the system setup and latch couplings together. Fuel the drum outlet, elbow valves should remain closed until after the engine is started so that the engine does not have to start under load. Fuel drum inlet elbows may be opened after unisex cam lock adapters are installed. The liquid fuel filter separator inlet and outlet valves should remain closed until the initial system flooding. Inspect the 8 fuel drum elbow valve coupling to ensure the elbow valve coupling is closed. The valve stem fully extended. Install the elbow valve coupling on the outlets and inlets for all 4 drums. Whenever covering a unisex coupling together, dress continually ball and observe the ball backouts. Failure to check and failure to ball the pops back out could allow the buildup of the static electrical charge that could cause an explosion and death. Install one adapter assembly, 2-inch unisex non-valve coupling and 2-inch male cam lock adapters on each elbow valve and coupling. Install let manifold the cam lock quick to disconnect on fuel transfer pump inlet. Position pump and engine module 6 to 8 feet from the fuel drums to inlet the manifold facing fuel drum outlets. Caution: serious injury could occur if heavy equipment is moved and lifted out of the moved or lifted without sufficient personnel to do the job. The engine module should be removed from the pump engine module from the moving and lifting. If the pump engine module must be moved as a unit, do not lift it in the model to the 2 feet with less than 5 personnel, 3 feet with less than 6 personnel, 5 feet with less than 8 personnel. Install 2-inch by 6-foot suction hoses as required to connect the fuel drum into the manifold. Reposition the pump engine module as required. Open the valve to the unisex coupling on the suction hose and the inlet manifold. Install the engine module and pump engine module. Slide the engine module into the pump engine frame. The PTO end of the first and flexible coupling and will not engage. It must necessary to rotate the flexible portion slightly to align with the engine adapter. Latch the engine module to the pump engine frame. Clamp the exhaust pipe to the exhaust manifold. Connect the pumping over the temperature cable to engage the module connection panel connector J3 coupled together adjacent dust caps. Connect the fuel supply line and return line at the engine module. Check all the throttle control is the maximum position fully right. Position the fuel filter separator 4 to 5 feet from the pump and the engine module with the inlet facing fuel transfer pump. Position the accessory module between the pump engine module and the fuel separator as so operators have clear view of the easy access to all system components. Connect the 3 and 6-foot discharge hose between the fuel transfer pump and the fuel filter separator. Open the shutoff valve and unisex coupling on the discharge hose, the lower port. Connection recirculation manifold to the fuel filter separate outlet port, upper port. Open manifold unisex coupling valve. Do not open 3-inch unisex coupling on the fuel filter separator. Rotate the manifold so the 2-inch unisex coupling are facing the drums and unoccupied 3-inch unisex coupling faces are selected for the fueling point. Open the 3-inch, 2-inch, 100-foot discharge hoses. Identify 3-inch unisex coupling and connection discharge hose of the 3-inch valve unisex coupling of the recirculation manifold. Open the unisex coupling valves on the recirculation manifold discharge. Open the 3-inch 100-foot discharge hoses at 3-inch coupling on the end of each and 2-inch coupling on the other. This is the only hose in the system that can only be laid out one way. Using the remaining 3-inch 100-foot, 2-inch 100-foot, 2-inch 50-foot discharge hoses, elbows and T's are required to lay out the discharge hose to selected points. Open all unisex coupling valves is connected as are made. Establish the recirculation path. At the fuel drums, connect two 2-inch by 6-inch suction hoses and non-valve coupling mounted on the inlet 2 inner fuel drums. Connect the 2-inch 6-foot suction hoses to a Y fitting. Open the 2-inch unisex coupling valves on the Y fitting suction hose. Connect the unisex cross fitting of the free leg of the Y fitting. Open the 2-inch unisex coupling valve at the Y crossing connection. Connect the 2-inch by 12-inch discharge hose to the cross of the fitting of a non-valve unisex coupling mounted in the inlets of the 2 other fuel drums. Open the unisex coupling valves at the cross of the discharge hose connection. Connect the 2-inch 50-foot discharge hose between the cross fitting of the recirculation 1 coupler on the recirculation manifold. Open the 2-inch unisex coupling valves at each end. Open the fuel drum inlet elbow valve couplings and the 2-inch unisex valve coupling and discharge hose. Drive a ground rod between the pump engine module across the module fuel filter separator for the ground advanced air aviation forward area refueling system. Connect the Connecting the pump engine module accessory module for the fuel filter separate ground cables to the grounding rod. Position a fire extinguisher spill container water at each fuel point pump in the engine module. Position one nozzle kit, one ground rod at each of the fueling points. Drive the one ground rod at each of the fueling point approximately 10 feet back from the discharge hose and end. At each end of the fueling point, select the nozzle for the use. Connect the discharge hose at the end and connect the nozzle ground clamp to the ground rod. Remove the engine air filter. The storage cabinet is the accessory module. Remove the dust caps from the intake manifold. Install engine air filter with center clamp facing up. Verify the position on the toggle switches on the control panel. Open the control box. Start the run stop switch at stop position. Intake heater on the switch of the off position. Fault lights on the switch on the on position. Emergency stop with the switch released and close control box or cover. Remove the multi-conductor control cable from the W201 from the storage cabinet with an accessory module route through the cutout on the upper lip of the storage cabinet in connecting the A1A1J2 on the engine module connection adjacent dust cap together. Remove the battery power cable W202 NATO connector end of the storage cabinet in the accessory module route through the cutout on the upper lip of the cabinet. Connect the 1A1J1 on the engine model and connect the adjacent dust cap together. Position the engine switch to the run position. Observe the pumpage, hot flash once alternator and low oil pressure illumination remain lit. Illuminate and remain lit. Engine hot indicators not illuminate. If this is listed conditions do not occur, determine the cause before operation of the aviation forward area refueling system. Restore engine to switch to stop position. Fill the engine fuel tank to the connection of the external fuel source. Perform the operating procedures. Death, injury may result from the explosion of fuel fumes exposed to any open flame, spark, or static discharge. Do not permit smoking at an open flame. Spark producing equipment within 50 feet of the advanced aviation forward area refueling system. Ensure all the equipment is well grounded prior to the commencing of any operation maintenance task. Always ensure the ground connection is complete prior to any of the refueling operation. Grounding rods should be placed within 5 to 10 feet of all operations. Drip pans will be used in the preventing of the environmental contamination. System components caution. System components are subject to damage within thermal expansion. As the temperature increases, the pumpages in any of the component will expand. If they're trapped in a component, the expanding pumpage may rupture the seal and cause the leak of the equipment may malfunction. For this reason, all system valves should remain open as long as the system is flooded. With all the valves open, the hoses will absorb the expansion and protect the system seals. If any of the components must be isolated, it should be drained and defueled immediately to prevent the damage. Before performing operation checks, conduct a visual inspection of the advanced aviation forward area refueling system set it up to ensure the system is properly assembled and ready to be fuel. Verifying system with grounding. Position the fuel selector to the valve on external on position according to the desired fuel source. Verify the manual start control is fully lowered. At the fuel drums, open the fuel drum outlet elbow valve. The couplings allow pumpage to the flow and perform the start of the pumping engine using the electric start of the end manually. Perform the normal electric engine start. Unlatch and open the control box over the release of the emergency stop operator. At the control, hold the engine switch to the start position until the engine starts. If the engine fails to start within 15 seconds, release the switch and allow the starter to cool for a minute before continuing. When ambient temperatures are below 20 degrees Fahrenheit or 70 degrees Celsius, position and hold the intake heater switch in the on position while the engine switch is in start position. Adjust the control panels, lights, and desired brightness. Disconnect the battery power cable from the NATO connector 1A1J1 on the engine model. Install dust connectors on the NATO connector and the free end of the battery power cable. So the battery power is in the accessory module. Proceed to step 9C below. Before manual engine starts, remove a manual starter from the container. Disconnect the battery cable from the NATO connector 1A1J1 on the engine model. Install the dust apps on the NATO connector, free end of the battery cable. Unlatch and open the control box cover. Release the emergency stop operator. Place the start runs start, run, stop switch in the run position. This engages both engines of the frame latches lower than the latching engine model clamp. At the front of the pump engine model, remove the two quick disconnecting pins attaching the coupling guard of the pumping engine model. Unlatch and remove the coupling guard and flexible coupling on the manual start. Align the flexible coupling with the adapter engine. Insert the legs of the manual start bracket in the pumping engine module frame. Adjust the position in manual start as required to engage the flexible coupling on the manual starter with the adapter on the engine. Raise and latch the engine module clamp to hold the manual start in position. Lift the manual start and the control knob. Tighten the lower knob. Pressure the reset button on the manual starter. To when the manual starter pulls the starter rope steadily smooth the 8 foot full times. To wind the manual starter, pull the start rope steadily and smooth eight full times, and I'll come out and eat. All right. If the temperature is below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, pull the 12 times. Do not exceed 12 pulls. Operate the trip lever on the manual starter to start engine. Follow the step that restores electrical stop capability of the control panel. After the engine is running, lower the manual start to control fully. Serious personal injury could result from the contact of the rotating parts, such as engine starting coupling components. Keep the body well of the coupling, clear of the coupling when rotating. Do not allow loose clothing near the engine where it may be caught on the rotating parts. Hand coupling guard sides when raising and keeping fingers well clear of the coupling. Verify the pump outlet and pressurizes hose expanding. If the hose does not pressurize after 2 minutes of operation, should not on the system determine why the pump is not primed. Serious eye and skin injury could occur from the venting of the fuel with the filter vessel's manual valve is open. Wear suitable protective clothing and eye protection. After the liquid fuel filter separates and depress the latch, open the manual valve. Crack open the lid of the fuel filter, separate the inlet valve, allow the fuel to slow filter vessel, forcing air out of the manual vent valve. Close the manual vent valve as the first appearance of fuel. Open the liquid fuel filter separator, inlet, and outlet valves fully. Allow the fuel to recirculate. Conduct appropriate tests as required by the AquaGlow and participate contaminants of steps 8 and 9. Periodically monitor condition of the fuel transfer pump discharge hose. If the flattened hose indicates the loss of prime, a hose that remains in the flat for 2 minutes or more. Shut down the system and determine why the pump has lost prime. The most likely cause of the large air bubbles is in the fuel drum. Periodically monitor differential pressure gauge on the liquid fuel filter separator. Normally reading within the clean elements of 2 to 3 PD per PSIDs or 1.141 and to 2.11 GMs at the MM2 differential. When operating at a full flow, the lower flow rates will cause element and clogging at the lower differential pressure. If the differential pressure approaches 15 PSIDs, notify the supervisor for replacement of the callus elements. Periodically monitor water level and the water level sight gauge on the liquid fuel separator. The small bulb should be afloat at all times. If a ball reaches the top of the sight gauge water and sump pump, it has risen to the highest level and can be monitored. As soon as possible, isolate the filter separator by closing the inlet outlet valves, vent pressure, and opening manual vent valve, and drain sump pump until all water has been drained. Refuel the aircraft. Caution: when wear appropriate personal protective equipment, ensure sleeves and are completely rolled down and uniform is buttoned up all the way to the collar. Operate systems in compliance with safety procedures. Guidance aircraft in position using proper hand and arm signals according to Field Manual 3041111 and Field Manual 1067-1. Make sure all aircraft's armaments are to the safe. The plane passengers take the passenger marshalling area to the plane that will remain on board. Crew members may assist with the refueling, manning the fire extinguisher, carrying the fire extinguisher from the ground rod to the side of the aircraft by fill port. Make sure all radios except one used by the pilot to monitor the air traffic control are turned off, and inform the pilot that he or she must not transmit while actually refueling is taking place. If required, lock open port adapter onto the CRR nozzle for opening port refueling. Ground and bond the nozzle to the aircraft. Never attach clip to the radio antenna or propeller or rotor. Insert the nozzle bond into the bond plug receiver on the aircraft. Attach the connector to the bare metal part of the aircraft, usually to skid. When using the CCR nozzle, ground into the ground rod. Perform the dust cap of the nozzle, removing the plug from the aircraft fill port, and do not put the dust cap on the ground. Verify all the valves are open. Do not leave the nozzle at any time during the refueling. Stopping the fluid or the fuel is an emergency at the refueling. Shut down the advanced aviation forward area refueling system. Replace the plug for the aircraft fill port. Recap the nozzle. Unplug the nozzle bonding plug, release the connector clip, carry the nozzle back to the hangar. Do not lay it on the ground or drag it across the ground. Remove the fire extinguisher, take the fire extinguisher back to its position by the ground rod. Board crews and members. Board crews passengers have a pilot, crew, and the chief sign for the fuel of the DA Form 3643 during direct aircraft to lift off. Shut off the pump if no aircraft are inside of the expected to arrive shortly if you are preparing to disassemble the system. Test is undissolved water and aviation fuel. The aqua glow test. Microfilters are protected. Prolific generators or static electricity. If essential, no unbounded metal components are present during the filterization, since the concentrated developed voltage sufficient to cause the static discharge within the last test apparatus. Procedures require that the metal parts receivers must be electrically bounded together with the fuel apparatus. Receiver must be grounded to known ground. Death and personnel injury must result from the improper grounding of the components. The following procedures are applicable for the dynamic line samples only. The fuel is to be taken directly to the system under test through the test pad without exposure of the sample to the atmosphere of to a sample container. Perform the aqua glow test. Calibrate the water detector. Calibrate the water detector prior to the use of each day. After each hour of the use, when the ultraviolet light is replaced and batteries are recharged, verify the calibrated standards is in the water detector window labeled test pad here. Note that the set rating recorded on the calibrated standard. Install the instrumental pack on the back of the water detector. Place the pot or selector on the water detector desired position, for example, on initiation battery. Provide light modulating lever below the power selector fully to one side other. Press the hold and light button between bolt located on back side of the instrument pack. Hold the light button until the indicator needle on the instrument pack is ready to steady for 10-15 seconds. When the indicator reading has been steady for the 10-15 seconds, slowly move the light modulate lever on the water detector in opposite direction until the indicator needle of the instrument pack is in zero. Also move the light and module lever is in sample direction while the zero water detector is calibration or testing is to eliminate the areas caused by play and lever. When indicator needed that has been zeroed, observe the number directly before lighting modulation. Lever on the water detector. Compare the number below the lever with the setting rating on the calibrated standard. The position set point should be matched. If the reading of the step does not agree to the calibration pad rating, adjust the water detector in the following manner. Remove the plug on the side of the instrument pack of the 45-degree bend. Insert a small screwdriver. Adjust the reading of the corresponding with the calibration set to the rating. If the reading step above does not agree with the calibration pad reading, adjust the water detector in the following manner. Remove the plug on the screw on the side of the instrument pack with a 45-degree bend and insert the small screwdriver. Adjust the reading of the corresponding calibration set point at the rating. Sample the attach a flexible extension tube to the monitoring housing assembly. Verify the 3 position lever is in the stop position. Separate the monitoring housing and install the monitor. Reassemble the monitoring housing. Connected attached monitoring housing by pass line to the valve body on the top monitoring housing. Place 1,000 millimeters of sample bottle near the filtration module and monitoring housing assembled. Place the monitor assembly open line into the 1,000 millimeter sample bottle. The filterization model may be unpressurized during the next step when wear the proper safety equipment. Prevent the fuel from spilling on the ground. Use rags to prevent the fuel from spraying on the personnel or equipment. Death or injury may result. Attach monitoring housing assembly to the filter module sample to the port. Quick disconnect. Connect the monitoring housing assembled ground cables to the ground point on the filtration module. Move 3-point lever on the monitoring housing to flush. Flush the monitoring assembly immediately prior to the sampling. Displace the sample line with at least 2 volumes of test fuel. Capture the dispatch fuel into the 1,000 millimeter sample bottle. Disconnect the monitoring housing bypass line with the valve body on the top of the monitoring housing. Place the 3-position lever on the monitoring housing to stop. Remove the monitoring from monitoring housing. Open monitor. Use the tweezers to insert the new test pad, making sure that the treat side of the pad is orange, is facing upstream in the light side of the monitoring. Reassemble the monitoring housing and connect the monitoring housing by the bypass line to the valve body. Place the 3-position lever on the monitoring housing on the test position. Pass the 500 millimeter of the fuel through the test pad. Accurately measure the test pad sample quantity. The normal valve of the test of the fuel is 500 millimeters. Place the 3-position lever on the monitoring house to stop. Warning: using the connection of the disconnecting of the flexible extension tube from the filterization module. Use the rags to prevent the fuel from spraying on the personnel equipment, or death or personal injury may result. 14. Disconnect the flexible extension tube for the filtration module. Rating the procedure. Disconnect the monitoring housing by the bypass line of the valve body. Remove the monitoring from the monitoring housing. Use tweezers. Remove the test pad from the monitoring. Press the test pad between the dry blotters and absorbent towels to remove the excessive fuel. To personally firmly above 5 pounds or force 3 to 4 times the wheel of the handle. Move the pad with the tweezers. Note: the test pad should be read within 3 minutes after the sampling is initiated. If the test pad is not read immediately after sampling, it must be placed in a desiccator to prevent the moisture from picking up from the air. Ratings may be based on a dry test pad, not damp, with the fuel should be avoided as well with given in the high airworthiness readings. Rating with a pad which has not been well bottled will also give a low reading, as an excessive fuel will absorb the part of the ultraviolet light or decrease the fluorescence. Using the tweezers, remove the calibration standard under the water detector window. Do not discard the calibration standard. Using the tweezers, put the test pad under the water detector window. Place the power selector to the appropriate power source. Press and hold the light button located on the back side of the instrument pack. The ultraviolet light must be on get a reading. This can be checked by the moving the light modulator lever over the water detector from the one extreme to another. The instrument pack indicator needle should violently when lighting modulate lever is moved. Zero water detector adjusting light modulating lever until there is steady reading for 10 to 15 seconds. Always move the light modular lever in the same direction when zeroing in the water detector. Eliminates the area caused by the backslash. Release the light button on the instrument packing when the reading is complete. Observe the light modulating lever corresponding number. Record instrument reading estimated nearest 10 to the sampling valve. Set the water detector power selector to the off and observe the power. Record the temperature of the fuel using the tweezers. Remove the test pad from the water detector assembly for the visual observations. Free water in the fuel is normally well dispersed and will form an eventual even distribution of many small points yellow fluorescent on the test pad. While illuminated by the ultraviolet light, the large drops of water will form a few large spots yellow fluorescent on the pad. The large spots may be given an erroneous reading and should be disregarded on a new sample taking. Calculations. Instrument reading directly if the sample is 500 millimeters. Correct the readings other than the sample size, multiplying the reading of the 500 the sample size in the millimeters. Free water parts per million and meter reading parts per million of 500 of sample volume millimeters. Report the result to the nearest whole number as a parts per million by the volume undissolved water in the fuel. Also sample the volume used in the test. Report the temperature of the sample, if available. Equipment cleaning and stowage. Fill the dispersion bottle of either storage bottle. Disassemble the monitoring housing. Assemble the flush with either. Wipe all the components of the clean rag and paper towel. Pour in an unused either storage into either storage bottle. Stow each item in the fuel contamination test kit. Verify the power selector on the water detector is in the off position. Remove the inspector pack of the water detector so that the both items in the fuel containment test kit. Secure the fuel contamination test kit is for transportation. 11. Performing particular contamination fuel test. A microfilter is a prolific generator of the static electricity is essential for the no unbonding metal components that is present during filterization since the concentration of developing the voltage sufficient is to cause static discharge with the test apparatus. The procedure requires that all metal parts in the receiver must electronically be bonded together. The fuel test appropriate receiver must be grounded to be known to a known ground. Death of the personnel injury must result from the improper grounding of the bonding components. Place the fuel contamination test kit in the vicinity of the filtration model. Attach the flexible extension tube to the monitoring housing assembly. Verify 3 positions of the lever on the monitoring housing is in the stop position. Separate the monitoring housing. To avoid extraneous contamination, monitoring protective plugs must be removed only for the sampling and replaced immediately. The monitoring must be opened in a laboratory. Select the monitor using contaminated monitor blue and red protective plugs for a color of comparison test and match weighted monitoring. Yellow and red protective plugs of the gravimetric testing. Remove both protective plug outlets from the monitoring and place it into a clean and safe place. Position the monitoring in monitoring housing. Remove other protective plug inlet from the monitoring and place it in a clean and safe place. Reassemble the monitoring housing hand to tighten only. Extreme force is both unnecessary and undesirable. Ensure that the monitoring housing bypass the line is correct connected to the valve on the top of the assembly. Place the monitoring housing assembly on the open line in the container at least 1/3 of 1.3 or 5 liters of 1.3 gallons or 5 liters capacity. Connect all ground clips of the filter separated ground point. Verify that their 3-position lever is in the off position. The filtration model may be under pressure during the next step. Wear the proper safety equipment to prevent the fuel from spilling on the ground. Use rags to prevent the fuel from spraying on the personnel and equipment. Death or personnel injury may result. Attach monitoring housing assembly to the filtration module sample. Quick port disconnecting fitting. Position the 3-position lever to the flush, displacing the sample line of the half-gallon or 2-liter of the fuel capture displaced fuel in the 1.35-liter container. When the 0.52 liters of the fuel has been connected, move the 3-position lever to the test position. Take the fuel sample no more than 1 quart, 1 liter. When required amount of the fuel is collected, place the 3-position lever in an off position. The 1 minute wait period in the next step is required of the precaution against electrostatic. The static discharge of any system component could ignite the fuel from causing an explosion from the fuel vapors. Do not operate the system until it has first been grounded properly. Use caution in disconnecting the flexible extension tubes of the filtration module. Use the rags to prevent from spraying the personnel or the equipment. Death or personnel injury may result. After sampling is completed, allow 1 minute to pass to disconnect the monitoring housing and assemble for the sample connection to the filtration module. Remove the monitoring from the monitoring housing and attach the syringe to the lower opening spider web side of the monitoring. Pull outward on the syringe handle to draw the residual fuel from the monitoring. If the fuel remains in monitoring, disconnect the syringe, expel the collected fuel into the suitable container. Repeat the procedure if necessary to withdraw all fuel from the monitoring. If a gravimetric method of the contamination is to be used, proceed to the step U. If coloring rating method is to be used, use tweezers to pry off the top of the monitor. Use the tweezers to lift the test pad up from the monitor. Dry the test pad by placing an absorbent paper blotting until the test pad is in as dry as possible. Use the tweezers to hold the test pad following the instructions under the cover of the coloring rating booklet. Determining the rating sample. 5. Reporting the next nearest rating number and sample volume used. Replace the protective plugs in the monitoring hand. Hold the monitor carefully. Do not open the modular monitor until do not open the monitor under any circumstance before returning it to the laboratory. If the monitor is open in the field, it cannot be used in the gravimetric assembly analysis. Okay, place the monitor in a suitable container and record following information: the date, monitoring serial number, and sample location, volume of the sample, line of the pressure, and the flow rate. Forward the monitoring to appropriate laboratory for the analysis as soon as possible. Fill the solvent dispenser bottle from either the storage bottle. Drain and assemble the monitoring housing and assemble the flush with either pour an unused or either storage bottle. Wipe all components on the clean paper towel. Return all items to the fuel contamination test kit. 12. Removing the condensation from fuel lines. Performing the following procedure to remove the condensation from a flooded system that has been unused for an extended period, for example, overnight, during which the temperature has decreased significantly. Close the uniset coupling on the liquid fuel filter separator outlet valve. Never subject the nozzles to auxiliary pump suctions. Seals with ruptures. Drain nozzle immediately after disconnection if it from the system. Close the discharge uniset coupling valves and disconnect and drain all nozzles. Select the fuel drum to defuel in. Select the defuel drum, close inlet elbow valve, uniset coupling valve, and the discharge hose. Disconnect the discharge hose from the inlet elbow and connect the discharge hose to the flow side auxiliary pump. Open the uniset coupling of the valve to the open side of the auxiliary pump and discharge the hose. Connect the auxiliary pump's uniset coupling into the inlet valve, uniset coupling, open the uniset coupling valve and inlet elbow valve. Closing the fuel drum inlet elbow valve on the remaining drums, turn on the auxiliary pump. After each hose is defueled, the uniset coupling is closed. After each coupling is closed, do not reopen the uniset coupling until the defueling is completed. This will prevent the introducing air into the system once at a time. Open the uniset valves, open the discharge hoses at the fueling points. Check the uniset valve of the hose collapse. At recirculation manifold, close the uniset valve of the refueling points to isolate the discharge hoses. Turn off the auxiliary pump. Disconnect the inlet elbow valve from the fuel drum. Disconnect the discharge hose from the auxiliary pump. Hold the auxiliary pump over the container. Open a unisex couple the valve to drain fuel. Close the unisex coupling valve. Hold the auxiliary pump over the container and disconnect the auxiliary pump from the inlet elbow valve. Disconnect the auxiliary pump from the power cable from the auxiliary pump for the module and stow in the cable in the accessory module. Instead, all the elbow valve of the coupler on the fuel drum and open the elbow valve coupler. Open the valve couplers on the remaining fuel drums. R. Start the system and recirculate for 10 to 15 minutes. Install all nozzles at the refueling points and open the uniset coupling at the nozzle. As at the recirculation in the manifold, open the uniset couplings to refuel the points of the U. Commence normal operation. Okay, disassemble the advanced aviation forward area refueling system for movement. Perform all defueling procedures. System components are subject to damage to the thermal expansion to prevent the damaged equipment and ensure all components are completely defueled prior to the transportation or storage. Do not attempt the defueling of the more than one inlet of the hose at a time. Fuel spillage could occur and pose a hazard to the personnel and equipment. With the fuel transfer pumping and running, close all the fuel drums outlet and elbows valves coupling. Close all uniset coupling at the fuel drum and into the suction hose. Begin at the fuel drums. Disconnect the suction hose at one time. You open the uniset coupling. Hold far end of the hose of the higher end, then intake manifold. Close the uniset coupling at the far and intake manifold on the suction leg. Close the uniset coupling at the free end of the leg and then install the dust cap. Repeat in step 3 for each of the 3 remaining suction legs. Close the emergency shutoff valve as soon as the fuel transfer pump is unloaded. As the accessory module control panel, position the engine switch to stop position. Caution, do not run the fuel transfer pump dry. Running 15 minutes will cause damage to the pump. Never subject nozzles to auxiliary pumping suction. Seals with the ruptured and drain nozzles immediately after disconnecting it from the system. Trap fuel can cause large internal pressure that can cause damage to the nozzle when temperature rises. Okay, continuing. Close uniset coupling valves. Disconnect all the drain of all the nozzles. Defuel liquid fuel filter separator. Close uniset coupling on the liquid fuel separator outlet. Disconnect the discharge hoses from the recirculation manifold. Disconnect one suction of the hose from the fuel transfer pump inlet from the use of the next step. Disconnect the suction hose removed from the fuel transfer pump inlet. The defueling uniset coupling and the uniset coupling on the flow cell eyes of the auxiliary pump. You open the uniset coupling valves. Disconnect the disconnect the discharge hose of the auxiliary pump. Open the uniset coupling valves. Connect the power cable to the auxiliary pump. Open the liquid fuel filter separator manual valve. Turn on the auxiliary pump to the pump down and the liquid fuel filter separator 3-inch by 6-foot discharge hose for the fuel transfer pump. Close the liquid fuel filter separator inlet valve manual valve when the air is seen in the sight position. Turn off the auxiliary pump at the closing auxiliary pump uniset inlet and outlet valves. Disconnect the discharge hose from the auxiliary pump. Connect the recirculation manifold from the flow of the uniset coupling. Disconnect the suction hose from the auxiliary pump and the liquid fuel filter separator. Defueling the system of the fuel hose. B. Defuel system fuel hoses. Auxiliary pump must be supported in the following steps. Select a fuel drum to defuel and ensure to use the drip pans during the operation. At a selected fuel drum, close the inlet valve with the uniset coupling of the valve on the discharge. Disconnect the discharge hose from the inlet elbow valve. Connect the discharge hose to the flow the side auxiliary pump and the discharge hoses. Connect the auxiliary pump uniset inlet elbow valve and uniset uncoupling and open uniset coupling valve and inlet elbow valve. Close the fuel drum inlet valve with the coupling on the remaining drums. At the advanced aviation forward area refueling system, suction recirculation hoses are connected to fuel the drums. Viva elbow valves, integral cam lock couplers. When elbow coupling is closed, valve stem is extended. When the opening is retracted, the stream valve is open. Opposite for the conventional valves is required. The operator to double check the valve position during the system setup and tear down, since the observation can be misleading. Failure to heed this warning could result in death or serious injury. Turn on the auxiliary pump one at a time. Open the uniset valves and the discharge of the refueling points. Close the uniset valves at the hose collapsing as the hose collapses. Open the end of the disconnect in the elbow valve clam coupler from other 3 drum hoses. Allow hose to pump down and you close the uniset valve. When the hoses are collapsed and defuel, close the inlet fuel drum on the last fuel drum. Turn off the auxiliary pump. Disconnect the inlet valve, elbow valves from the fuel drums. Disconnect the discharge hose from the auxiliary pump. Hold the auxiliary pump over the container. Open the uniset coupling valve with the drain fuel and close the uniset coupling valve. Disconnect the auxiliary pump power cable from the auxiliary pump module. Disassemble the stow equipment for movement. Exhaust system will remain hot and for some time after the engine is shut down. Avoid contact with the exhaust system components until they have been cooled sufficiently for safe handling. Serious personal injury may occur from the contact with hot metal. Caution: drain nozzles immediately after disconnecting. If the system trapped, the fuel can cause large internal pressure that can damage the nozzle when the temperature rises. During the recovery, ensure that dust caps are installed. The couplings immediately after the disconnection. Practices will protect the couplings and reduce fuel contaminations and spills. This procedure assumes that the defueling has been completed. After defueling, small amounts of the residual fuel will remain in the system. Place a shallow container on the beneath each coupling at the catching drain where the coupling is disconnected. After fuel points, remove the ground tap rods and drain the trapped fuel bags and nozzles. Return the nozzle kits and ground rods to the recovery area. 2. At the refueling points, start at the end of the discharge hose and roll discharge hose toward the first fitting. Close the disconnect uniset couplings and strap hoses. Connect the process unit. All hoses are rolled, secured. Return the discharge hoses to the recovery area. Disconnect the suction hoses and straps. Return to the recovery area. Return all Ys and Ts and elbows and cross to the recovery area. Disconnect and return recirculation manifold to the recovery area. At each fuel drum, remove an inlet and outlet elbow valves and return the valves to the recovery area. At the recovery area, sort and stow all fuel handling advanced aviation forward area refueling system components. Remove the stowed ground cables and liquid fuel filter, pump engine module, and the accessory module. Return auxiliary pump to the recovery area. Serious injuries could occur if the equipment is moved lifted without sufficient personnel to do the job. Always use a separated personnel to move the relocated and liquid fuel filter separator. Use the proper physical lifting procedures to use suitable lifting devices and dolly. Wear safety shoes and gloves and other suitable protective clothing. 10. Return the liquid fuel filter to separate the recovery area. Remove the ground rod from the pumping station and return to the recovery area. Disconnect the stow electrical cables and accessory module components. Install the dust cap on the connectors. Disconnect the inlet manifold to the transfer pump. And disconnect drainlet inlet manifold stow and the storage module. If attached, remove the manual starter from the pump engine of the module. Stow in the container. Remove the air cleaner from the engine slow in the accessory module. And install the dust cap on the intake manifold. Return the accessory module to the recovery area. Remove the engine module from the pump engine module. Unclap the exhaust hose pipe. Exhaust from the exhaust manifold. Disconnect the pumpage over the temperature cage cable at the edge of the module connection panel. Install the dust connectors on the connectors. Wrap free and end of the cable around the fuel transfer pump outlet. Disconnect the fuel system return lines at the engine module. Connect the free end of the lines together. Unlatch the engine module from the pump engine of the frame and the slide engine module of the frame module out of the frame. Return the engine module to the recovery area. Return the pump engine module to the recovery area. Install the engine module in the pump engine module. Slide engine module in the pump engine module PTO end of the first. If flex coupling will not engage, it must not be necessary to rotate the flex portion slightly to again with the engine adapter. B. Latch the engine module to the pumping engine frame. Clamp the exhaust pipe to the exhaust manifold. Connect the pumpage over the temperature of the cable at the engine module connection panel connector. J3. Connect the adjacent dust caps together. Connect the fuel supply and return lines at the engine module. Clean the spilled contaminant units, flood and bag, return recovery area. Complete the DOD Form 1970, DA Form 598, 7E, DA Form 2404, DA Form 598E, 5988E, DA Form 3643, turn in the supervisor. See the task and condition standards. 1. Performance measures. Apply risk management procedure. Go. Read and understand unit and installation standard operation order requirements for requisition, storing, handling, and disposing of the hazardous materials. War appropriate protective equipment as required. Dispatch the aviation forward area refueling system. Use the Department of Defense 1970 DA Form 598 7E and DA Form 2404 DA Form 5988E approved. Remove the aviation and forward air arming refueling system components for the vehicle or aircraft. Inspect the aviation air fuel forwarding air refuels for damage that can have been occurred during the transportation. Ensure system is complete. Perform during and after operation preventive maintenance check services of the system commands and TM 10-4-330-237-13P. And know the DA Form 2404, DA Form 5988E, any faults found while the preventive maintenance check services. Assemble the AAA FARs and prepare for use. Perform the operation procedures. Test the undissolved water in the aviation fuel aqua glow test. Perform the facilitator contamination fuel test. Remove the condensation from the fuel lines. Assemble the aviation FARs system for movement. Complete the Department of Defense 1970 DA Form 5987E and DA Form 2404, DA Form 5988E, DA Form 3643, and turn it into the supervisor. Score the soldier if an apparent performance measures are passed. Score the soldier in a no-go if any performance measures have failed. If the soldier scores a no-go, show the soldier that he was doing the wrong and how to do it correctly. DA Form 2404, 3643, 5984E, 5987E, 5988E, DA Form 1970, Form 10, Field Manual 1067-1, Field Manual 304111, OF Form 346, TM Form 4330T37 and 13 and P. Related 3-112, 3-104, TM 56630-21810. Additional references 10 TM 104930-250, 13 and P 10 TM 104930, 35114, TM 8110-201, 14 and P, and that's it. We have one more, which is an operating remote refueling rearming deployable distribution system.